Thank you. Thank you, Mataji, for joining in today. And please accept our humble obeisances from everybody who have joined and about to join and will be watching this online. We are reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. We are on chapter 2, canto 2, chapter 9, and the verse for today is 19. So over to you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Mataji, for giving me the opportunity to do the service of Srimad Bhagavatam and to all of you. I am eternally indebted to my Guruji for without his mercy, I wouldn't have been able to do the service. And I also am very, very grateful to all the Shiksha Gurus without whose teachings I wouldn't be able to do this. So thank you, Mataji. We'll start with the Mangalacharan, so I'll quickly do that. Om Ajnana Timirandhyasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tashmai Sri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadhamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandyaham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padana Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakha Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindha Dina Bandha Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastite Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpata Rupyascha Kripa Sindhu Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. So we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 2. Canto 2, chapter 9, verse 19. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Nashtaprasya Patreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Ruttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Nashtaki. Tam Priyamanan Samupashtitam Kavim Praja Visharge Nija Shasha Narhanam Bhapasa Ishat Smita Sojisha Gira Priya Priyam Prita Mana Kare Prisprishan. Apologies for my really bad Sanskrit pronunciation. Translation. And seeing Brahma present before him, the Lord accepted him as worthy to create living beings to be controlled as he desired, and thus being much satisfied with him, the Lord shook hands with Brahma and, slightly smiling, addressed him thus. Purport. The creation of the material world is not blind or accidental. The living entities who are ever conditioned on Nityabadha are thus given a chance for liberation under the guidance of his own representative like Brahma. The Lord instructs Brahma in Vedic knowledge in order to diffuse this knowledge to the conditioned souls. The conditioned souls are forgetful souls in their relationship with the Lord, and thus a period of creation and the process of dissemination of Vedic knowledge are necessary activities of the Lord. Lord Brahma has a great responsibility in delivering the conditioned souls, and therefore he is very dear to the Lord. Brahma also does his duty very perfectly, not only by generating the living entities, but also by spreading his party for reclaiming the fallen souls. The party is called the Brahma Sampradaya, and any member of this party to date is naturally engaged in reclaiming the fallen souls back to Godhead, back home. The Lord is very much anxious to get back his parts and parcels, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita. No one is more dear than the one who takes the task of reclaiming the fallen souls back to Godhead. There are many renegades from the Brahma Sampradaya whose only business is to make men more forgetful of the Lord and thus entangle them more and more in material existence. Such persons are never dear to the Lord, and the Lord sends them deeper into the darkest region of matter so that such envious demons may not be able to know the Supreme Lord. Anyone, however, preaching the mission of the Lord in the line of Brahma Sampradaya is always dear to the Lord. And the Lord being satisfied with such a preacher of the authorized bhakti cult, shakes hands with him in great satisfaction. Hare Krishna. So, in this verse, there are quite a few, a very, very, interesting and important verse, because there are quite a few things to concentrate on over here. So I picked up a few things, but first of all, I'd also like to, pay my huge obeisances to Bhakti Rasamrita Swami Maharaj, because I was listening to his teaching on this verse, and hopefully, I'll be able to share some of the things that that I learned from his teaching. So, so when looking at the verse, I thought of breaking it up into 4 or 5 points. So the first point I thought of is, and this is interactive. So if you want to highlight any other points which I have missed, please do let me know. So the first thing is, the Lord gives Brahma, he shakes his hand with Brahma, and the Lord gives him the task to create the universe. So there has to be that belief that the Lord has on Brahma. And why is that belief? Because we know in Bhagavad Gita, we know that Krishna says, as one responds to me, I respond to him in the same way. Ye yatam non prapatyante tam sataiva bhajami aham. So that means Lord Brahma had that huge belief, massive belief in the Lord, and he's a great devotee. Now we know our Lord Brahma is a great devotee. There are many Brahmas in innumerable universes in creation, in the material world, but we know our Lord Brahma is a devotee, and that is the reason the Lord has assigned him this duty of creating the secondary universe. So belief in Krishna came out as one of the points in this verse. The second thing is that Lord Brahma, as the verse, as the translation says, or the verse says, the Lord shakes Brahma's hands, and not only shakes it, but he does it. And the Lord uses, and the verse uses the word, what's the word? Smita. That means smiling. The Lord smilingly shakes hands with Lord Brahma. So that was the second thing that the verse pointed. And then in the purport, Prabhupada mentions right at the beginning that this creation, that task that Lord Brahma has been given, creation is not accidental. Creation is not by chance. And the next thing is that Lord Brahma had a really, really big task on hand. It wasn't just an ordinary task. It was a big task that Brahma had to do. And then lastly, Prabhupada also briefly mentions about the renegades of the Brahma Sampradaya, and how they are very different to the people who are followers of the Brahma Sampradaya. So let's start with the belief in Krishna and why the Lord comes, and as we know, the Lord comes and gives darshan to Lord Brahma. And so far in the canto, we've seen how Lord Brahma has been given. He was looking at the Vaikuntha, and he was praying, he was doing tapa, a lot of penance, and then the Lord came to him and gave darshan to him. So Lord Brahma did not just get Lord's darshan right away. He had to do that tapa or penance and austerity for 1,000 celestial years, not human years, 1,000 celestial years. So let's talk about another devotee, Angad. So Angad was one of the monkeys in the Vanasena in Lord Rama's army. And when Angad went to Ravan's palace, this was before the battle started. Angad went and he very nicely he told Ravan, please give back Madhusita, because we need to take her. Madhusita doesn't belong here; she belongs to our Lord Rama. And then, as Ravan said no and no, Angad became more and more angry, and he said, why wouldn't you want to give Madhusita? You've abducted her. And then it came to such a point that, where Ravan and all the other demons, they were laughing at Angad that, look at this silly monkey, a tiny monkey, and he's wanting us to listen to him. Why should we listen to him? And Ravan was making fun of him. So Angad said, okay, that's fine. So he said, and Ravan said, just get lost, go away from here. And Angad said, okay, so here is my feet. You're asking me to go away. I challenge you to just move my feet even a tiny bit, just a tiny bit. And then they were all laughing. So, to cut it very short, the pastime. So one by one, every single, lots of people in Ravan's assembly, they all tried, first of all, initially individually, and then together in a group, and nobody could move Angad's feet even a tiny bit. And then Ravan came, and Ravan tried to move it, and then Ravan couldn't as well. And what Angad did, he just pushed back with his other leg. He just, kicked a few people, and their headgears, they just flew, and then it just went and fell at the feet of Lord Rama. And you can imagine just how far a distance that was. So what happened? And Ravan couldn't really understand what had happened. And then Angad said, don't mess with my lord. You have now refused to give Madhusita back. And you shall see the consequences. And then he left. So we understand why was Angad, who was really just a mere monkey, why was he able to show such power? And the power laid in the belief in his Lord, the belief that whatever happens, his Lord is there to protect him. His Lord is there to support him. And that is the true sign of a true devotee, that whatever task they are given by the Lord. So Angad was given the task of going to that's a messenger to Ravan and ask Ravan to give Madhusita back. But whatever task, and over here we see Lord Brahma has been given the task by the Lord to do creation, secondary creation. And the Lord assigns such tasks to people, to devotees who he knows are true devotees. And what's the main sign of being a true devotee? Complete belief and complete surrender unto the Lord. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita right at the end, Sarvadharman Parityajan Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja. Even if you forget all the knowledge, Arjuna, just surrender unto me and I will take care of you. And he adds the words Masucha, don't worry, I will take care of you. So this is the belief, that the Lord had in Lord Brahma. And that is the reason, he shakes, he comes and he's smiling, he shakes hands with him. Now, the shaking of the hand, that's also a very historic and monumental event, isn't it? Because where do you see the Vedic culture? Usually in the Vedic culture, we see that people do namaskar or namaste. So kar is hand, or namaste or namahaste, where we put our hands together and we bow down, depending on how a person is able to. There is exchange of obeisances between people. Some people just bow down slightly with their hands folded, or some people bow down completely or physically with their body. But over here we see that God personally appeared to shake hands with the empowered creator, that is Lord Brahma, because Lord Brahma has performed all these austerities and the Lord was overjoyed. So there's something over here that started. We think that, when I was listening to Maharaj's class, he was saying that we think that shaking hands has been started in the West. But no, we see it first came from the Lord. He started the thing about shaking hands. So every credit goes to the Lord himself for even starting this practice. So the Lord can do to his devotees, the Lord treats his devotees or reacts with his devotees in the way that he feels he wants to share his love with. And over here with Brahma, shaking hands and smiling to do so was the Lord's way of showing his love towards towards Lord Brahma. And he says to Brahma, I'm so pleased with you, Brahma. And that really is a recognition, isn't it? That, the Lord telling Brahma that he's pleased with him. Now, that also brings us to a very, very interesting point that, how does the Lord react with his other devotees? Now, the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we see it's a very different Lord Krishna. Krishna is very, very intimate over there, what to speak of shaking hands. He's, he hugs people, he does everything. He's very, 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 very intimate. He climbs trees. He climbs on the shoulders of his brother Balaram, but also the Gopas climb on his shoulder. They used to fight. They used to have the children, the Gopas, they used to have two teams, and whichever team lost, the other team would have to, the losing team, one of them would have to carry the people from the other Gopas from the other team. And inevitably, many a times, Krishna's team would lose. And they all would let Krishna, all the Gopas, they forced Krishna to carry the Gopas from the other team. And Krishna had to do it. Sometimes they would even bully Krishna into doing it. And Krishna loved that. Krishna would carry the other Gopas on his shoulder. Krishna would carry his father's shoes, Nanda Maharaj's sandals, on his head. Krishna would, dance if the gopis, if he wanted some butter from the other gopis, the gopis would say, you dance first, do what we say, and then only we will give you, the butter. And that was so Krishna's exchange in the 10th canto with his devotees is very, very different. It's very intimate. We see him, hugging Sudama, hugging his friends, or, it's not just a shaking hands. But in the first 9 cantos, we see that the Lord appears slightly from a distance to his devotee, and the devotee is more in the mood of awe and reverence upon seeing the Lord, as we see in the case of Dhruva Maharaj, where the Lord comes and touches his conch shell on the head of Dhruva. And but over here, and he smiles over there as well. The Lord, usually when the Lord appears, he's always got this mild and gentle smile with him or on him. But and it's interesting that the verse mentions the word smeeta, or mild or gentle smile, because it's telling us that the Lord usually never laughs very loudly, especially in the first 9 cantos. Whenever he appears in front of his devotees, there is that gentle smile. But it's very, and that's a direct contrast to, what we see in the 10th canto. So yes, sometimes in the Dwarka Leela or the Vrindavan Leela, we can see the Lord really, laughing heartily or laughing loudly, as we see in the case in the pastime of Pondrika. Does anyone know the pastime of Pondrika? So there was this, so Pondrika was what, in modern psychology, we would call him a megalomaniac, or a person who has an obsessive desire for power. And he thought of himself to be so important. Pondrika thought himself to be so very important that he actually thought, in his stupidness, he thought that he himself was Vasudeva. And he tried, he mentioned that to everybody he came around, and he propagated that he was Vasudeva, and the person who was in Dwarika and ruling from there was actually an imposter. So he sends his messenger to Dwarika in the Lord's Assembly, and he says that he wants to fight Krishna, because Krishna is the wrong Vasudeva, he's a fake Vasudeva, and he is the correct, he's the original Vasudeva. Now, on hearing what Pondrika's messenger had to say, and that was said in the assembly of Krishna, not just Krishna's, associates in the assembly, but Krishna himself started laughing loudly. Because you couldn't, that was where we see the Lord really laughing loudly, because it's such a ridiculous idea. However, the Lord, agrees to that, and he goes and meets Pondrika, and he agrees to fight Pondrika. And Pondrika even, carried the signs of Krishna. He had the Shankha Chakra, Gada, and Padma, but it didn't take very long for Krishna to behead Pondrika with his Sudarshan Chakra. So we see the Lord, he does laugh heartily when he is doing a Leela, and there is there is reason for him to do that. But usually, as we see him appearing in front of Lord Brahma, it was very brief, and that continues up until the 9th canto, where the Lord comes and gives a very short, he comes for a short time. He exhibits his pastimes, he blesses his devotees, and then he leaves. So whether it is, as we said, Dhruva Maharaj, whether it's Prahlad Maharaj, when Narasimhadev comes for a while, he stays a bit longer. Yes, in the 10th canto, we see Lord Krishna stays for 125 years, and Lord Ramachandra stays for 11,000 and a bit more years. But we again see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he comes in Kali Yuga, and he stays only he deliberately gave himself a very short lifespan in Kali Yuga, because there was a reason for it. So when the Lord appears in any species of life, he acts according to the way that the members of those species would act. So if he appears in the fish species as Matsya Avatar, he would, he behaved like a fish, or he came as a Varaha in Varaha Avatar, he would act like a boar. However, he could speak. he could speak, he would speak like human beings do. So similarly, when he appears in the human species, that is when he comes and does the Nara Leelas. Nara means human. And at that time, because human beings can smile and also laugh, we see the Lord smiling most of the time. But again, when he gets very, very intimate, that is where we see him laughing loudly. And that's where we see. So in this case, in front of Lord Brahma, the Lord is somewhat subdued. He's subdued, but so there is that relation of awe and reverence, because Lord Brahma had just performed austerities for many, many years. But nevertheless, the Lord is still very pleased with him. And therefore, he went out of his way to shake hands with Brahma and smile, because and to signify the fact that, he has accepted Brahma as his worthy son. And he has accepted Brahma as being worthy of the one who will be able to create the universe, the task that he is going to give Brahma now. So that is the first bit of the verse, that yes, the belief in Lord Brahma and the fact that the Lord comes and shares that exchange of handshake with Lord Brahma with that smile. And then the next part of the verse talks about why did Krishna choose Lord Brahma? Yes, he's a great devotee, but what did Lord Brahma, what was Lord Brahma asked to do? So we know that Lord Brahma was given the power or he was empowered to do the creation, because he has performed such a great, tremendous piety over many, many lifetimes, over many, many years. Now, technically speaking, and theoretically and technically speaking, anyone can become Brahma if that living entity or that jiva has an appropriate stock of pious activities. They can become Lord Brahma. They can become a Brahma. So as we know, Brahma it's a position, and Brahma is also Jiva Tattva. Brahma, that's the top. He's the topmost Jiva, but he is still Jiva Tattva. He is not Ishwar Tattva. So anyone, any Jiva, any individual spirit soul can technically become a Brahma if they have a lot of pious stock, a lot of good karma, and pious, not just good karma, but pious activities in their stock. And it's said that a jiva has to have 100 consecutive lifetimes of perfect discharge of devotion under the Varnashram Dharma to be able to get the qualifications to be able to become a Brahma. So that is which I was mentioning, that, one can become a demigod or even Brahma just by living a very pious life and accruing all that pious activities. But our Lord Brahma is a devotee. He not only accrued all those pious activities, but he is also a devotee. And so the kind of qualifications, intelligence, ability, and power required, which is absolutely inconceivable to ordinary mortals of the, ordinary jivas, that is something that is possessed by Brahma. Although a jiva, but that is the extraordinary qualities that the Brahma has. So, why is it important to to mention just how powerful, intelligent, and empowered Brahma is. Now, let's think of a plot of land, okay, and a building that needs to be built on that plot of land. So there is the, the owner of that plot. And so the owner appoints an architect and also appoints the engineer, the builder. The owner appoints them. And then the owner tells them what to do. The engineer has to use the engineer's expertise, the builder, the architect, they all have to use their expertise in, say, drawing that building, looking into what should be used. Should it be made of glass or brick or whatever, the externals, the interior, everything, the drawings up to the precise, measurements. Now, they will be back and forth of this, taking it, they would do something, they would have their mini meetings, they would then take it back to the owner of the land and check with him if it meets his if it is according to what he has visualized, etc. So similarly, the original design or the original idea of the creation is that of the Lord's. And it is according to the Lord's desire that Brahma will start creating the universe. So the Lord had to have someone who was not just, pious, but someone who had the ability, the intelligence to be able to do that creation. Because creation is not just a simple thing. So even constructing a tiny building, which takes maybe a few months, and then we see there's a huge building, people, and phenomenal huge building, people consider, how is that done? What about constructing or creating the universe? It is just so very complicated to create the universe. It's unthinkable complex. It's just that complicated and complex a task. And that is where the first part of the purport mentions, Prabhupada very, very clearly mentions that, today's scientists, they think that everything comes out of a big bang. However, creation is not an accident. Creation was not just, the elements put together and then the planets came together. The arrangements, of the nature, everything in the universe, the complexity of the coexistence of matter, the material things, the jivas, and not just the living entities, but the different species, the law of nature, what is superior, who's the controller, what is happening, everything had to be planned very, very carefully. So Prabhupada says that material world is not, he says, not blind, and it is not accidental. And, he very categorically, we have to understand that, because why does he use these two words? Because accidental, just by the word accidental, it means that something has happened by chance. And this is a very, very, common theory nowadays, that if something can't be explained right down to the smallest thing, then it has happened by chance. Now, if the cause of something cannot be explained, that can't just be said that it's a chance. Whereas we, in the Vedic culture, the Lord is telling us that every single thing can be explained. And then, in the lesson that I was hearing, there's the other example of a coin being tossed in the air. Now and then, people just guessing whether it's going to be a heads or a tails. And then if it's a head, some people say head, and then we think it's a coincidence. oh, it's a chance it's a head, or it's a chance that it's a tail. But is it really coincidence? Is it really chance? Are we thinking about the force, the distance between the coin and, how far it was thrown, the gravitational pull, and all of the other things? Are we really, really counting all of that? If we are able to count all of that, measure all of that, put all of that in an equation and find the answer, we would see that we will know exactly whether when a coin is thrown up in the air and it's found in the hand, we will know exactly whether it's going to have its head on the front or tail on the front. So chance today is understood as being a cause or something that is unscientific. It's just an expression out of ignorance that, when we don't know the cause of something, we say it is chance or it is accidental. And it's a very easy way to get out of it. Get out of something. But we forget that there are forces behind that act, forces behind every single act. Even if we think about, the force with which the coin is thrown up in the air, how would you define that force? That force was created from somewhere. And if we start questioning ourselves that where did that force come from, who created it, we will have to go back to the absolute origin. And the absolute origin is nobody but the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It did not just come out of a big bang where everything just came together and there was, and the creation happened. So we have to agree. So Prabhupada is saying that we have to understand that the divine, that the Lord has unlimited, inconceivable energies and power. And that is the intelligence that is able to create the creation. And that intelligence, so Lord Brahma has been empowered with that, because the Lord has representatives who have been empowered with this tremendous intellect and ability. And they are given that power on behalf of the Lord to set up this creation, to create this whole universe, the secondary creation. And it is created right down to the smallest, minutest detail, right down to the arrangement of atoms and electrons, and how even the small, tiny cells in our body are arranged and managed and how they function. Even the doctors, they can't, they can tell us what's happening, what the process is, how the machinery inside our body function, but they cannot explain why each particular part of the body functions in the way they function. The reason as they function is that in that particular way and not in a different way. So and then that is left to science. So science in the material sense can only give us reasoning up to a certain point, but it cannot give us reason to every single thing. So similarly, if you think of, going back to the points we started with, so what was the task of Brahma? So we understood that, creation is not accidental. And now we see what is the task of Brahma. So Brahma's task is not a very small task. He had a lot to do. If you think of, cooking, for example, so the Lord gave him the ingredients. The Lord gave him the ingredients to create the universe. But just as, we need a chef, we need a person to chop the ingredients, the vegetables, or we need the spices, someone to bring in the spices and give the right spices and put the right spices in the right proportion. we need someone to, you know, be the vessel. And we know that Mother Earth is the vessel, the womb where, you know, where all the 8.4 million species have, you know, take birth. So we need someone to be able to do different types of cookings from the same ingredients. So the various species that were born. And we need someone to do the stirring, because if we don't do the stirring, if we don't have the cooking put in the, you know, if we don't have the flame just in the right proportion, you may have all the right ingredients, all the right spices cut in, you know, chopped or cut in the right way. But unless and until it has the right amount of flame, unless and until it is stirred properly, it is all going to go to waste. And who is that stirrer? Who's the one who's controlling everything? It is the Lord. So the Lord gives everything to Brahma, and Brahma's task is to use those ingredients in the right way. But the Lord is always in control. So the scientists say, and that is what the Prophet mentions again, that, you know, the scientists claiming that it is Darwin's natural evolution, you know, his theory of evolution, we understand that no, it cannot be. There has to be someone who is right on top, who's managing everything. Even the smallest bit that has been created, that smallest bit has come from an origin. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that everything emanates from me. Nothing is beyond me. Every single thing in the whole of creation, in the material and in the spiritual universe, everything emanates from the Lord. So at every stage of evolution, we also believe in that process of evolution. So we see, you know, Lord Brahma, and from him, there are his children. And then from his children, there are other children, there are other species. And we understand, you know, there are demigods created, but there are also demons created. There are also, you know, creatures created who are of a different form to the human beings, all the 8.4 million species. So God is the ever controller. And that is what Prabhupada is mentioning again over here when he's saying that, you know, creation is not a chance, it's not, and Brahma really has a huge task on hand. He has the task, but the Lord is always in charge in all circumstances and at all times. So we have to understand this to be able to understand creation. So the absolute truth is not that the origin of everything is just from science, from, you know, from space, from matters coming together, but the origin of everything and the absolute truth is that there is Krishna, who is the origin of everything. But not only the origin of everything, Krishna is also the supreme controller of everything. He has everything. So we go back, right back to where we started. Mama and Aham. I do it, Krishna does it, and everything belongs to me, Aham and Mama. So everything belongs to Krishna and everything comes from him. He is the doer, he is the proprietor of everything. And in Bhagavad Gita again, in chapter 9 verse 10, Krishna says that this material nature, Arjuna, this material nature is working under my direction, and it is producing all moving and unmoving beings. And by its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again, but by me. So it is Krishna. So Krishna is not an imperfect controller of the world. Even Brahma, sometimes he cannot control certain things. we know how he gets anxious. We see the pastime of churning of the milk oceans, where he had to go on the plea of the demigods. He had to go to the Lord to ask for a solution. Even Brahma doesn't have a solution at times. Even he gets disillusioned at times, and we see how in Canto 10, where he kidnapped all the gopas and all the calves because he wanted to test Krishna. So even Lord Brahma comes under illusion, and he loses control. He's very, very capable, but he also comes under illusion at times. So there is that ultimate controller who's always controlling and never allowing things to go awry at any point of time. So lastly, in the last part of the purport, Prabhupada talks about how, so, to finish off this section, we understand that Brahma's empowerment by the Lord was because Krishna was pleased by him. Just to summarize, because he was pleased by him, and so he empowers Brahma. And why did he do that? Why was why was that done as well? What was the reason as to why Krishna asked Brahma to do the secondary creation? And Prabhupada mentions in the purport that is only to release the Nitya Bhattas, the imprisoned soul, Nitya, everyday souls which are imprisoned all the time, 24/7 in this false world of illusion. The conditioned living entities, they have forgotten their Lord and Master, and they're suffering over here, and they are in want of that love and that loving relationship with the Supreme Lord. And all that is needed is to revive that relationship with the Lord for the jivas to be happy again, and for them to be released from this bondage of material imprisonment and return to the spiritual world. And they have forgotten that. So this creation given to tasked on Brahma was designed to release these Nitya Bhattas, as Prabhupada mentions, to release the Nitya Bhattas from suffering. To, no parent would want their child to be to suffer. So Maya is a great devotee of the Lord, and he puts the jivas through lots of challenges. Why? Just because she wants to rectify. She's doing the task of being a strict parent, a strict mother, who is reminding the jivas that they are not in their original home. So they must remember, they need to remember the Lord, and they need to go back to their original home. And we know the pastime of how Indra, when he did not listen to his guru, he was cursed to be a hog, and he forgot in his hog world, he fell in love with his hog family and hog life in so much that he refused to go back to his duty as the king of the demigods. And Narad Muni actually had to release him of that life for him to remember that he was the Lord. So even Indra was illusioned in the hog life. So people, or the jivas imprisoned, the Nitya Bhattas imprisoned in this world, they think just the absence of distress is what is happiness. They have no idea of the actual bliss, that Satchit Ananda that exists in the spiritual world, and what is their the original identity of their soul. They have forgotten that Ananda, and they are just happy with the absence of distress in this material world. And Brahma was given this task to create this universe so that the jivas realize where they are. and they remember their original home again through the process of, being illusion, disillusion, learning, doing sacrifice, and then finally performing bhakti, remembering the Lord, and going back to Godhead. So this is just a platform. The secondary creation is a platform very kindly given by the Lord to all the jivas who refused to accept him as the master and wanted to deflect from him. So right at the end, Prabhupada talks about that Brahma also has another task. And I know we've only got 2 minutes, so I'll do this very quickly. So Brahma, he had the task of being the secondary creator, but he is also, we mustn't forget that he's also a great devotee. So Brahma also inaugurates or starts a sampradaya, the Brahma sampradaya. And through the, we are in the Brahma sampradaya, the Brahma Madhva Gauriya sampradaya. So through the disciplic succession, through the teachings of the gurus, the acharyas, we are continuing, or we are trying to continue with what is the real teachings of Lord Brahma. And why should we follow that? Because Brahma is a true devotee, and he has been given the absolute truth in his heart by the Lord. So Brahma is very, very compassionate, but we know that, this Brahma Sampradaya, it is going to continue for another 10,000 years, and then there is going to be a decline. But at the same time, there are those renegades, the people who do not follow the Brahma Sampradaya, and they deflect from that. They have their own beliefs, and they end up believing in, believing in different other things, different other ways of creation, or not believing in a supreme personality of Godhead at all. So these are the people Prabhupada is saying they are the renegades of the Brahma Sampradaya. And they, of course, they come under, they are more and more taken into the clutches of Maya, because they are so disillusioned. And through the process of, total disillusionment over and over again, they will, in someday, some way, perhaps they will be able to come out of their illusion. But at the moment, they are very much disillusioned, and Prabhupada is encouraging all to keep believing in the Brahma Sampradaya, because Brahma is such a great devotee, so much of a great devotee, that he was given the task by Krishna to create this beautiful universe. How? By Lord Krishna himself appearing in person in front of Lord Brahma. And how did he greet Lord Brahma? He shook the hands of Lord Brahma, and he also smiled at him, showing Lord Brahma how pleased he is with him, and as a result, empowering him and giving him the huge task of creating a home for the fallen souls, who can have a home, a temporary home, which will allow them to practice bhakti again and go back to Godhead. So with that, I complete the discussion today. Apologies, it was a bit rushed, but it was quite a big detail purport with quite a few things to touch upon. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to do this service. If there are any questions, any corrections, any comments, please do let me know.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much for making such a difficult topic so easy. We really love your class because of the simplicity and the way you make it so easy for us to understand. There is a question from Prashanatma Prabhu. Prabhu, please unmute and ask your question.
No question, Mataji. Just thanking Mataji for the wonderful class. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for your encouragement. And, I'm just learning, and it's all the mercy of my guru and Gauranga. And,
Yep.
I wouldn't be able to speak a
Yes,
word without their mercy.
very well.
Mataji, two clarifications. One is, how many years did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu live?
48 years, Mataji,
At
in
the
this
50th.
material world. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then Nitya Bandhas. So we are classified as Nitya Bandhas?
Yes, the Badhas imprisoned Nitya every day. So souls who are imprisoned every day in this material, in this world of Maya. Yes, Mataji.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for those
Thank you,
clarifications.
Mataji.
I won't take much time because we have exhausted our time. And Prashanatma Prabhu, can you please end the session for us today? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji, for giving me the opportunity to end the session. Thank you, Panchali Mataji, for the wonderful session. And now we know one more thing that's not coming from the West, apparently. They didn't start the shaking hands thing. So yeah,
Yes.
It's
apart
a very
from being
common
so much
culture in
personality.
Kenya to shake hands. So now
Yeah,
every time Prashanatma Prabhu and myself will shake hands with colleagues, we will remember Krishna.
yeah.
So one more way of
Sure,
remembering Krishna.
We will.
Very
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Carry
Thank you
on,
so
Prabhu.
much. We've learned so much today from how Lord Brahma inspires us through doing austerity. Austerity is the only way to gain in our spirituality, and how favorable the Lord is to his devotees, and how much wealth is there in the spiritual world, and how much to look forward and aspire to. So thank you so much, Mataji, for the wonderful class. I'd request all the devotees to please unmute and chant the Hare Krishna mantra to thank and glorify
Hare
Charlie
Krishna,
Mataji.
Hare
Hare
Krishna, Krishna
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare
Rama
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Rama Rama,
Rama Rama,
Rama
Hare
Hare Hare.
Sarvabhyascha, Hindubhya Evacha,
Vanchakalpitruvyascha
Nanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo. Hare Bol.
Ribol Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Jai,
Her Grace Panchali Mataji ki Jai.
Jai,
Bhagavatam, Granthraj Srimad
Jai,
Bhagavatam ki Jai.
Jai, Hare
Thank you, Mataji's and Prabhuji's. Hare Krishna. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna. Thank you so
Hare
much.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.